Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Superboy Beyond. And we've had a bit of a break. We took a month off, and we are finally back. And it's a special episode because we actually have a guest on the show who worked on Superboy. He was a producer / showrunner on seasons 3 and 4 and wrote many great episodes of the show.
Yes.
Most DC fans probably know of his work from outside of Superboy, but we don't really get into that too much in this interview. We had written something like 20 questions and we only got through about 9. So we have said to Stan, if he's willing, we'll happily have him on again. So fingers crossed, we'll have him on again one day in the future and get to all those other questions and delve into the DC animated universe a little bit more. Yeah, we thoroughly enjoyed doing this interview. This is a lot of fun. He answered some questions that we've been wondering about regarding Superboy for a long time. Surprised us with some things. Like there are things that he talked about in this interview that I've certainly never heard before. Yeah, just thoroughly enjoyable. I hope you all enjoy watching it. So here he is, Stan Berkowitz. Thank you very much for agreeing to be on the show. We've been excited about this for the past month. I'll just jump straight in with my first
delighted. I'm delighted to meet you, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. I'll jump straight in with our first question then. You've written in your book about like the notes you would get from Viacom as well as DC Comics and all the other companies that were involved while making Superboy. You didn't give any specifics. Do you remember any specific notes that you remember as being particularly ridiculous from the time?
I wouldn't call it ridiculous. I would say that the note I remember best is one that came from one of the Viacom executives. He wasn't on the set every day, but occasionally he'd come and visit just to see how things were going. And he liked the idea of explosions. And he turned to me and he said, I want every episode to end with an explosion. And I thought, geez, that's going to be impossible. I mean, actually, the idea of doing that would hurt not just some of the stories, but a lot of them. So
there were episodes where that just wouldn't feel tonally right, you know?
Well, it didn't.
I can't imagine like Into the Mystery ending with an explosion like this. Great episode about death and all of that, and it's just this really poignant ending, and then just an explosion.
But he was quite insistent. He said, "I want every episode to end with an explosion." And then, you know, I remembered something from a Mel Brooks interview where he got a whole bunch of notes. I think it was on Blazing Saddles, or the producers. I don't remember which one it was, but he just said, "What you do is you just agree. Oh, no problem, I'll do it," and then you just don't do it, and then they don't remember that they asked for that, or more importantly, they'll see the finished episode and they'll think, yeah, this worked out pretty well, and they'll have forgotten the thing about the explosion.
Right.
So that's the note I remember most. A general note that I remember most. The only other one that was general and not specific to a story was that fairly, I guess, midway through my time there, which was roughly 13 months, the supervising producer said, don't use the word Superboy anymore. So, you know, when you look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, and the answer is it's him. Because the Superboy, I did mention in the book, Superboy sounds juvenile, and they were trying to make the show more adult.
Yeah.
So that was a note that was important. But again, it's hard to avoid that word.
Yeah.
So we did the best we could, trying to avoid that word.
Right.
So I get why as well. I mean, how old was Gerard? Like 32, 33 when he was playing the role towards the end. Like,
I think he got
you
the
could
part.
tell if you could have changed the name, you probably would have.
What would you change it to?
Superman, but then it's
No,
a
you
whole
can, no,
rights issue, isn't it?
that was not allowed. This is a
Yeah.
whole different project. There's all kinds of legal stuff regarding Siegel and Schuster, because they created Superman and then basically sold that for car fare.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then later on, they created Superboy, which became an entirely different legal entity. So we were allowed to use that legal entity, but we weren't allowed to mention Superman, and we had to stay away from him being a newspaper reporter. The obvious thing would have been to make Clark a cub reporter or an intern newspaper, but we couldn't do that either. So we came up with the idea of the Bureau for Extranormal Matters.
It's great.
Which worked,
as well.
yeah,
Like,
it worked really well.
The Bureau is a great idea for an episode. Like the fact that he's got those, he's got, much like when he's a reporter, he hears about things earlier than most people would just by working that job. It was a great.
And he's also curious about himself. Where did he's thinking, where did I come from? Maybe I'll find out. And there was even a moment in one of the Neela stories where he's thinking, well, maybe the two of us are connected because we have the same power. Maybe we're from the same place, or genetically related somehow. So he's thinking about that.
He asked her about that, and she says, "I would know if we were."
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know how she'd know, but she.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. You mentioned that during your time on Superboy, there was one occasion where you had just this absolutely fantastic outline for an episode, but then the first draft that you actually received of the script was disappointing, to say the least. I think.
Yes.
If you don't want to get into specifics with it, that's fine. But I'd love to know what episode this was.
You know what? That is the one question I don't want to answer, because the writer's still alive, and I still run into him occasionally.
It's fair enough. Fair enough.
It could be a number of them.
Yeah. We were trying to work out an episode that's got a twist ending and with a writer that only wrote for the show once.
It didn't. Well, wait a minute. It didn't have the big twist that you're thinking of. It just had a well-designed ending. The outline was really good, and I would have used this particular writer again, but the script, it just seemed like he didn't care about the script. And sometimes you get that, not just in the show Superboy, but also with some of the animation stuff that I've done. Not a lot, but some of it, where the writers go, oh, it's just for kids. I don't care, just crank it out over the weekend. They'll probably change it anyway. It's a terrible attitude to have, but you do run into it occasionally.
Was this a recurring issue with Superboy? Because obviously that's the show that's every season up until seasons 3 and 4, like the tone changed wildly. So it would kind of be difficult to know which tone to go for, I imagine.
Yes. There's a Michael Edlitz, not Michael, it's Mark Edlitz, that book. I was reading that, and they were describing the fact that Ilya Salkind had never worked on a TV series before, and that the show from the beginning, a time when I was not involved, that the show was designed as a separate motion picture each week. And when that happens, the directors, in motion pictures, the directors have more weight in terms of story and script content than on television. On a television show, it's generally the literary department that runs the thing. When you hear the term showrunner on TV, that showrunner is almost always a writer.
Yeah.
Right.
But in film, the director becomes the auteur. That, I think, because each director came in and they had different ideas and a different tone, that, I think, explains why you saw the changes in tone. The other problem is that it is fun to change up in tone. have a funny one every now and then. You guys are probably too young to remember um, anthological TV series very well. You didn't grow up with them because now most TV series now are serialized. But when you can do an anthology, you can have a funny episode and a very sad episode and all that. We had that freedom on when I worked at Warner's Animation because the Superman, the Batman Beyond, they were all anthological in that you didn't have to see last week's episode to understand what was going on in this week's episode.
Right.
So if you're familiar with Batman Beyond, the episode that got us our Emmy was called The Egg Baby, which was just complete comedy and very funny. Hilary Bader wrote it. A very, very funny episode. But then we did very dark ones also. And I think because we had that anthological freedom on Superboy, even in seasons 3 and 4, I think you'd agree that the tone changes a lot. And a lot of that, some of that, actually I should say a lot of it, was because of the writers. The different writers would come in with different ideas. Mark DeMatteis, who wrote Into the Mystery that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Mark is able to write in a lot of different tones, but Into the Mystery is kind of dark and very emotional and very spiritual. And yet, he's also capable of writing comedy, straight up comedy too.
Yeah. He wrote a lot of episodes of the show, and he's definitely one of those writers that when I think of Superboy, he's one of them. You're obviously another one.
He was terrific guy too. Very easy to work with. We were able to hire him as a staff writer, and he was there for the most he was willing to stay there for was 6 weeks. But it was really great to have him there because we had a very small staff. It was just me, Paul Stubenrau, and then for those 6 weeks we had Mark as well.
Right.
Do you want to ask the next question, Chris?
Sure. Stan, alternate universes have been kind of a recurring theme across your work in the superhero media. How intentional was this? Because we love your writing for alternate universe stories, with maybe one exception.
Oh, I want to hear what the exception was before I answer. What was
It's the final issue of the Superboy tie-in comic.
Oh, with all the different Superboys drawn by.
We don't necessarily hate it, but it's not our favorite episode. Let's
because it said that all this it says that all the Superboy stuff was BS. It was just his imagination. He imagined himself as Superboy.
When I first got it back in '92, because I'm old enough to have gotten it right off the racks.
Well, you were a child though, right? In '92,
I was 18.
Oh, okay. You were legal.
Yeah. So when I first got it, I was reading it and I'm sitting there like, what's going on here? And, my dad, he wasn't much of a comic fan, in his adult life, although he did read the original Shazam stories when he was a kid, because he was born in 29. And he says, let me see that. And he read through it and he's like, this is just like that episode of Dallas.
Yeah. Were you exactly?
I didn't remember that bit.
Yeah, and I said to him, "What do you mean?" And he had to explain the whole thing with, Bobby getting killed with the car accident, and then they have the whole season of him being dead, and then all of a sudden Victoria Principal wakes up at the end of the season, and he's coming out of the shower.
It was all a dream. It was all a dream. In my defense, I suggested that he had been imagining himself as a superhero, and then he becomes that.
Right.
So at least it wasn't just some random dream. This is what led up to it. Him thinking, I could be doing this. I could be doing it. Because I was going to say in real life, but in the actual Superman world, clearly he must have had some vision of himself doing that before he actually did it. So this is how we did it. And also, I'm defending myself now, but also as a bonus, you see Clark as a writer, right, which he becomes as a reporter.
That's an interesting way.
So that is my defense. As far as the alternate
we
worlds,
don't hate the issue necessarily. It's just, it's probably just not our favorite of your work.
but it does link up. It does link into the real Superman world, real, unreal, but the Superman world as exists now. I mean, if you go to the Superman movie, the most recent Superman movie, it's not unimaginable to think that as a young man, Clark had not been fantasizing about becoming a superhero. It's
Right.
complete. That comic book that I wrote is completely compatible with the new Superman, or any Superman, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Have I
fair enough.
converted you?
I think so. I'm gonna have to read it again.
Same here.
Yeah.
As far as the alternate worlds go, there were three influences for that. One, of course, was It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
And the reason that is it's the one I named first, is that there was a reason for going into the alternate worlds. Now, there's a show called Sliders that came out about a year or two after Superboy.
Right.
And in Sliders, there was no reason. It's like, oh, now we've gone to an alternate world where the Ice Age never ended.
Mm.
Where's the moral from that? Whereas if you look at It's a Wonderful Life, I hope you're familiar with that, he sees how he changed things.
Mm.
And in the at least certainly in Roads Not Taken, I'm not sure about the Roads to Hell, but in Roads Not Taken, you see what happens from bad decisions on the audience and Superboy see what happens based on bad decisions that alternate versions of him made. So he gets a sense of how his decisions have weight and what they'll change. So that came from It's a Wonderful Life. Bringing it to superheroes, probably in 1960, Gardner Fox's Flash of Two Worlds stories, which brought back that, did they call it Earth 1 or Earth 2?
Earth 2.
With the Flash with the helmet.
Jay Garrick, yes.
Jay Garrick, yeah. So that was an influence. And then the final influence is, I do mention that in the book, is from Spy Magazine. They wrote, they had an article about alternate universes where, as is said in the Roads Not Taken script, where every decision you make creates a different universe, it creates a different timeline.
Mm.
So with all those influences in mind, and the fact that I'd suddenly gotten cable and was able to watch the Arts and Entertainment Channel, which really was it was the equivalent of the History Channel, and there were so many World War II documentaries on that channel that instead of A&E, we said, or I thought that A&E stood for Adolf entirely. So we had that idea of someone with this tremendous ego, thinking that the world revolved around him. And I thought Jerry did a fantastic job of creating a character who was very juvenile, very childish, meaning the Sovereign. He just sort of wanted stuff now and really didn't think about other people at all.
Right.
That's completely fictional. There would never be a leader like that.
It's funny with the Sovereign and the darker Superboy from Roads Not Taken, because seeing Superman as a symbol of hope is very much a modern interpretation, it seems. But when you take that as well, it's like the first episode, it's the Superboy who lost hope and killed Luthor.
Yes.
And the Sovereign is just the Superboy who never had it to begin with, because he was just raised by completely the wrong person. And
exactly.
It's funny with those episodes. They hold up. I think they hold up really well.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you consider they're the first live action DC anything to even introduce the concept of a multiverse. Like, that's kind of amazing that, right out the gate it was working. The only thing before that Chris said was what was it, the something
Super Friends.
Yeah, Universe of Evil from Super Friends.
Yeah.
It's the only other
really?
multiverse
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's just they go to another Earth and there's like all the Justice League are just evil versions.
Oh, and no, that we did that. We did it was called the Crime Syndicate. In the comic books, they called it the Crime Syndicate, where it was the bad Superman, and then the bad Batman was called Owlman, I think.
Yeah, Ultraman and Owlman, yeah.
And then Flash was Johnny
Quick.
Right. We were going to do that on Justice League, and I hated the idea, actually. Where crime is good, and the do-gooders were the ones who were the criminals. It just didn't work, and that became the two-parter with the Justice Lords.
Right.
A Better World.
Yeah, which is an absolutely classic episode,
And it's the same theme. What happens when they go wrong. But the reason I like that one a lot is that the Superman in that one, and the Justice Lord Superman wasn't just some evil guy who'd been born on who landed on the wrong farm. This is our Superman, and he made that one decision and had to live with it. It was the same guy, and he had to live with it, and you could see that. I mean, it was a terrific performance by George Newbern. I thought that one came out very well too.
How well do you feel like? Because often with screenwriting and stuff, I'm aware that occasionally you can turn in just an absolutely fantastic script, but just something happens in production. Maybe there's maybe a load of chaos just happened on the set, or for one reason or another, it just didn't quite work. Do you remember how well do you feel that your work was put onto the screen by the directors and producers and everyone else?
Just as often a bad script can be saved by a good director. I remember you wanted to talk about the basement episode.
Oh, yes.
That one started off as not a very promising script. Again, it's what's called a bottle show, where the script, in order to make it easy and cheap to produce, it's all, I think it was just set in 2 sets.
Yeah, the bureau and literally just
right. And we never went outside, and it was easy to shoot. So you look at those particular scripts as kind of like not having a lot of potential. But I thought that Hugh Martin did a fantastic job. And I'm saying this as someone who just saw the episode. I had no memory of it at all after 35 years. But I looked at it again and I thought, this worked out really well. Hugh did a great job with it.
Yeah, it's brilliantly directed.
Considering that it began with Stacey Heideck holding a dildo in her hand.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? I know that it's in your book, which, by the way, thank you for sending.
Oh, thank you.
Would you mind telling our audience a little bit about that story? Because I was cracking up laughing reading that. It was so funny to me.
It's in much greater detail in the book, but a prop. If you know the episode, that we had to design alien technology that could somehow draw the memories out from your brain. So you can see I've lost some of mine, but they I did a drawing. I'm not an artist, but I think I can draw fairly well. And I gave it to the prop man, and I said, okay. I didn't know the prop man very well either, and he didn't know me well enough to check back with me. He just went ahead and made something, and what he made, he showed to the line producer, and the line producer looked at it and he goes, this thing looks like a penis with legs. So I'm not sure what went through the prop man's mind, but he went back and must have been thinking, wow, penis with legs, bad. Penis with legs, penis without legs must be good. Because that's what Stacey Heideck ended up holding in her hand. And when they called me, it was like an emergency, go to the set quick. She was holding, it was a sex toy. Bright green sex toy.
Wow.
and it's like, what happened? What is this? How did this happen?
Yeah, it's a good thing they called you down, really. If
Well,
that
Hugh,
episode had been shot.
Had I been, no, she would not. The point was she wasn't going to put it on her head.
Oh, good.
And
I'm glad
and as it turned out, the director had already figured out what to do about it.
Yeah.
And thinking back, I didn't appreciate him at the time, but he was a terrific director who, was very comfortable saving other people's asses.
And the final prop that they stuck to Stacey for that episode was just perfect.
Fine.
It didn't distract from her performance. Whereas
no, she was terrific in that too, playing two different characters.
Oh yeah.
Where sometimes you get confused. If you've seen Sinners, where Michael B. Jordan plays twins.
Yeah.
You know the episode, the movie.
Yeah.
It'll win the Academy Award this year probably. But in Sinners, I'm watching this and I'm having trouble figuring out which one is which. And to her credit, I thought Stacey did a fantastic job, because you until the point where you're supposed to be confused, you instantly knew which one was which. And again, that's the director, and it's also Stacey Hyduck and her acting ability. Yeah,
she was just fantastic. I don't remember a single episode where her performance wasn't there. She
was beloved on that show.
Yeah, you can tell why. Like, she's just phenomenal. Still to this day, my favorite Lana Lang. There's been other ones since that have been good, but I think she'll always be my favorite. In Road's Not Taken, going back to that for a minute, there was like this great scene where Lex is giving a speech to the rabid crowd and all of that, and then Superboy goes to the graveyard. And there's just all these like unmarked graves, just basic crosses, and then just one gigantic monument to Lex Luthor. I'm guessing that was in the script and not like a directing decision.
Oh, it had to be in the script. I mean, the actual look of the thing couldn't have been in the script, but yeah, that was actually, you know what? I can't remember back that far. What I will tell you is that in the very first draft of the script, that whole world was different. The world, that second world, or I guess you call it the second world, as there's the first world is the world of the show, then the second world, then the third world of the world. The third one is the world of Sovereign. But in that second world, it was going to be much more like our world, in that Superboy had simply killed Luthor and then just said, fuck it, I quit. Right. And the world wasn't that different. I mean, in that very first draft, when he sees our Superboy flying across the sky, he's sitting in a swimming pool with a couple girls beside him. And he goes, oh, what's that? I mean, he'd given up, and he'd kind of given into hedonism. And I hadn't given much thought to how the world would react. I'm still not sure to this day that the whole world would have almost come to an end.
It's almost post-apocalyptic, isn't it? Like, it's
just because this hero had done something bad.
It's a very powerful episode in that way. Like, I think it is. It really does work. I would have liked to have seen that alternate version of the episode, though. Like that. Yeah, that almost sounds like it could have been an interesting part 3.
Yeah,
that's one of the things with Road Not Taken. It's the same complaint we have about almost any Superboy episode. It's just that we want more of it.
No. If it were longer, you'd get tired of it. I like the idea that they're short, they're punchy. With luck, they don't feel tedious. With luck.
I don't remember being bored by any episode, so I think it was successful in that way for sure.
Well, at what age did you come upon these episodes?
I was about 10, 11, something like that. I caught it in reruns much later on.
And I started watching it, from season 1 when I first started high school. So
you were probably a little old for the show, and you had read comic books before.
Yep.
Huh. And you liked it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It really is like, it's one of those things, because I remember seeing it as a kid, and then I couldn't watch it again for a long time because you just couldn't get hold of it.
Yeah, there's no way to get it.
Yeah, eventually I managed to get some bootlegs, which were interesting. The quality was abysmal, and some episodes even still had the commercial breaks in there. But
Wow.
That was one of those things where when I finally did get to watch it again around 15, I really enjoyed it. You know, I think that, yes, there are parts that don't hold up, but for the most part, I think it's still a pretty good show.
I think Tom's frozen.
Am I frozen?
What was that?
Was I frozen on your screen?
Yes, you did.
I'm interested in hearing about the ages that you were, because I've been doing a bunch of conventions to promote the book, and inevitably people come over to the table that I'm sitting at and say, "Oh man, you made my childhood." And the age seems to be somewhere between, or somewhere around 10 or 12, and that's whatever you're watching then. It hits you very, very hard, and you're with it forever. For me, when I was 10, again, going back to the book, the Batman serials were the only thing available. But prior to that, when I was 3 years old, we had the Superman George Reeves show. Right. That hit me very hard too, to the point where, you know, I'm got a fake pair of glasses, and you know, and a cape and all that stuff as a little 3-4 year old. And I think
all three of us did that for sure.
And then years later, when we did the episode Paranoia, we were able to hire the two remaining actors from Superman, Noel Neill and Jack Larson. So
great
again,
episodes.
that show made a strong impression on me. And then later at age 10, the Batman serials, and also playing at the same time were serials from Republic. There's a character who later became the Rocketeer, but in my age group, it was called Rocket Man or Commando Cody. Yes. It's the helmet and the jetpack. Sensational special effects, by the way, that still hold up to this day. So that's the thing that made the kind of impression that Superboy made on you. That's what I got. And years later, when I was in my 20s, I remember going to a comic book type convention, and there were some of the stuntmen who had been in, and also Tris Coffin, who played the first Rocket Man. They were all there at the convention. Wow. So it was really cool to meet them. There was a great stuntman called David Sharp, very well known guy at that time, but also a handsome guy who knew how to act. But at Republic, they went, "Screw the acting, David. We need you to do the stunts. That's more important." And he, so I met him, actually interviewed him for the Los Angeles Times while he was inflicted. He had Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. Right. So that was near the end of his life. In the late 1970s, I met him. So I was a fan too.
It is always fun when you get to meet your heroes. Well, it's fun when they're nice. Sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes.
Sometimes it's disappointing.
Yeah, sometimes.
I worked for William Shatner's show, T.J. Hooker.
Yeah,
and barely had any contact with him until the final episode of the season. And he sat us down, the writing staff, and just very calmly said he didn't like any of the scripts that had been done that season. Oh, thank you, Bill.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe you should have mentioned. Maybe you should have mentioned it sooner.
Yeah, maybe before it was shot.
He at age 95, he is going to be at a comic book convention in Cleveland the weekend of March 13th this year, 2026, and I'll be there too. And I wonder if the two of us will have a conversation. I doubt it.
It'd be fun, you know. Who knows? He probably doesn't even remember that meeting happening.
He probably does, actually. I know I do. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you sit down with the writing staff and tell them you didn't like any of the scripts.
True. Yeah. Anyway, I was just going to ask the question about the big green dildo, but we've already done that. So that was the next question on the list.
There's not much more I can say. Unfortunately, no. I don't know what happened to the dildo.
That is something we wonder a lot on this show. Whatever happened to the props? Like, where are they? Like,
except in this case.
Yeah, like I know that sovereign symbol. I know that Gerard has one of them still, and it's on the wall in his house at the moment. Although he sprayed it black, which is I'm not sure I like it in black, but there we go. So, are there any? Here's another question. Were there any stories that you wanted to tell on Superboy, but you weren't able to for whatever reason? And were any of those ideas maybe reused in animation later on?
No, I mean, I was responsible for 50 episodes.
I suppose every idea
and you know,
had to come out.
You're squeezing out that sponge. You know, it starts with a lot of water and you're squeezing it, and sometimes, I mean, yes, I was close to running out of ideas, and not getting, for some reason, not getting a lot of help from freelancers. I guess they looked at the show as being, it's just kid stuff. I want to do, you know, prime time, hour-long stuff.
Right.
The best episodes of Superboy, you can tell they're the ones where it was taken seriously. Like, I believe you said in the book at one point, like, the characters can joke around, but the characters themselves can't become jokes. It's something like that.
The writers have to take the characters seriously. The humor should come from the characters, not from the writer just thinking, oh, this is just some stupid kid. I don't care. You know, there was when I stopped reading comic books, I was about 12 or 13. I started reading Ian Fleming's books, the James Bond stories, before that there were James Bond movies. And Fleming, it turned out, was kind of an interesting guy in that he responded to a negative review of Dr. No to the newspaper. And instead of just being outraged or anything like that, it was like, well, you know, I agree with some of this, and then I don't agree with that. And then there's a real upper class English guy, and that he's, even though he was agreeing with the reviewer, there was just a sense of condescension that the letter had. So hopefully I'll try not to be too much like that, because I have no reason at all and no justification for being condescending.
No, that wasn't the impression we got at all. So there was one question going back to our previous one. We put it out there for some of the fans online. Like I put on reddit.com. I said, are there any fans out there of the Superboy TV show that has a question for you? Because I thought it might be fun to throw in my favorite one. We did only get one response, but thank you, Retro Ninja Kick, for this question. Were there any other villains or concepts that you perhaps wanted to get into the show but were off limits for whatever reason? He says he guesses that Brainiac or Legion of Superheroes were off limits. I know why Legion was, because Mike Carlin told me years ago. But yeah, were there any characters?
Why was Legion off limits?
Because technically they premiered in Adventure Comics, not Superboy Comics, and there was like a legal boundary that it has to be in a Superboy title, even though Superboy was the main character of that issue of Adventure. They were off limits for that reason. But yeah, were there any characters you remember maybe wanting in the show but couldn't happen for whatever reason? Because Kryptonite Kid was in the show, like he was heavily sort of reinterpreted, but that's always something that's fun to see.
You know, and I wish I could answer this. I don't remember. I know that from reading comics, fans love it when you bring in a second hero, a third hero. When I worked on the Spider-Man animated show, oh, look, we're going to have Iron Man for 5 seconds, or War Machine. They're going to be in and they're going to be out. Okay, fine. It would have been a good idea to have additional heroes in there. But
we've talked about this at great lengths as well. And like, it's our headcanon with absolutely no confirmation, but in our minds, the 1990 Flash series with John Wesley Shipp is in the same universe as Superboy, just because seasons 3 and 4, the cinematography looks so similar.
Well, John Francis Moore, who has a story credit on Roads Not Taken, the reason that he didn't write that was that he got a job on the Flash.
Really?
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, he was working with Howard Chaykin on the Flash, literally the same time. He'd come to pitch the idea to me in L.A., and then I said, "Okay, we got it." And he goes, "No, I can't. I'm on the Flash now," which is a much better deal. In fact,
that show had a much bigger budget. Let's face it, But
well, the budget at that time for a 1 hour primetime thing would have been around $1 million or a little over, probably a little more for the Flash. And so you'd think that the Superboy budget would be about half that, which would be 500, but no, it was about 250.
Wow.
So that explains the video effects, those.
Yeah,
lights.
editing it on videotape was. I wish
it was shot on film. It was shot on
Yeah.
film.
It would cost a fortune to remaster, though, wouldn't it? I wish they would, though.
It was shot on film, and then, but the effects were done via video, as you can easily tell, many of them. Although there were some where you couldn't tell. There were, I remember the editor, Mike Elias, was showing me a thing from Hell Breaks Loose, where the bureau's haunted, and a desk sort of flies past among all the chaos, and he goes, "That desk didn't exist. That was electronic," and you never would have guessed. Also, in The Road to Hell, when you see the futuristic city that it's not futuristic, it's set in our present time, but because Superman has had such good luck creating a better world, that is what their urban world looked like. It was just this beautiful place, again, completely invented with the video effect.
Wow.
So video works. They work real well sometimes, but other times they just look kind of phony. And in our defense, if you know the Superman serials with Kirk Allen,
yes,
no, we're working our way through those for the channel.
Where he runs behind the boulder and then an animated Superman flies out, because that's how they did their flying trick. That was so crappy that even a 10-year-old would look at that and go, no, it's just crap. Get rid of it. And those things never ran. It's like they were run out of the theaters because that idea, I think, was such a piss poor way of doing the flying thing, especially because at the exact same time, to go back to Rocket Man, the effects on Rocket Man in 1948 were superb. I mean, I didn't know how they did that flying trick or all the flying stunts until I worked in a film lab where you could stand right in front of the screen, walk right up to the screen, and you see those tiny little fish line wires going through the dummy's body. That's how good. It's Howard and Theodore Lydecker were the ones who did the Rocket Man flying effects. Superb work, even to this day. Whereas the stuff with Superman really looked it was just a bad idea. Can we do something other? Also in they did the Lydeckers did the dummy work in Captain Marvel in 1941. Right. So here they are 5-6 years later, with the example of the Lydeckers already there, and they go, no, we'll just do an animated Superman. And it made the live action serial look like crap, and it made people look back at the Fleischer work and go, geez, this was really good. And the Fleischer work, I think, still stands up.
Those animated shorts are just phenomenal. There's a few episodes that there's a few elements that didn't age the best, but I mean,
the story. Oh, you mean the racism because of Japan? Yeah. But the story.
But I mean, it's a product of its time, isn't it?
But they weren't well constructed stories either. They were shorts. So there's a problem. Superman solves it. The end. Whereas with us, we were a 3-act structure. It's a different kind of a story, and it has more of an emotional. There's more of an emotional arc to a half-hour episode, as opposed to just the beautiful artistry that the Fleischers didn't really have the stories to back it up.
Yeah, it's funny talking of like the special effects and stuff in Superboy. It's amazing considering how low the budget on that show was. Like you guys were attempting some really, really cool things. Like, I mean, Lois and Clark was the first show that introduced me to the character, and then it was like the Christopher Reeve movies, obviously, and just all of that stuff. But Superboy, like, even as a kid when I first saw it, I think one of the first episodes I saw was Mindscape, and
Oh yeah, Mike Carlin and Andy
yeah,
Helfer.
and the thing I always characterize Superboy as having is it's a show that took big swings. Like,
Yeah,
it
yes.
didn't always pay off, but my God, did you try and, like, yeah, it was just, even if the budget wasn't quite there, you still gave it a damn good try, and I think that's really to be commended with the show.
Thank you. I mean, we had the model of the Chris Reeves movies, and you know, you try, you do the best you can.
Yeah. I mean, there are some really interesting. I mean, Lois and Clark, it was just very romantic comedy, wasn't it? Week to week, like, you had some supervillains show up from time to time, but the romantic comedy angle was the focus.
Yeah.
But then you have shows like Superboy, and one week, like, it's like a very small character-driven bit set all at the bureau, and then the next week, Superboy's kidnapped onto an alien spaceship, and he's got to help them, like, rebel against the idiotic captain that's running the show. And it's just the fact that you could have such huge changes in tone and setting. It was magic.
It's a pleasure to be allowed. It's a pleasure to be allowed to write that way, and that's not really done that much anymore. To have those kinds of have that kind of artistic freedom, because most shows now are they're serialized, so the tone's kind of similar. The advantage of doing serialized is that the ratings are better. You hook that audience and they just keep watching. Right. Whereas if you do an anthological one, if you have a run of maybe one or two kind of dull episodes, people just go, I don't want to see that anymore, and you're done.
Yeah. And it's also with, I mean, serialization, it can shoot them in the foot as well, because there are shows where they've only got 10 episodes, but you can feel that maybe 2 or 3 of them are just filler, because they're biding their time before they get to the finale. And
White Lotus this past season. I loved the earlier seasons, but this last one that got all the nominations and everything.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. So my wife Tegan, she's watching the first 2 with me. Best show ever. We loved it. Then season 3 comes along, set in Thailand. I think, yeah, it was Thailand, right? So season 3 comes along, and she watched a couple with. I watched everyone. She watched a couple with me. And then she goes, I don't want to see this anymore. So I continued watching for the next 2 episodes, right? 2 more hours of my life. Then she comes back and says, well, I want to see I decided to see it again. What did I miss? It took literally 30 seconds to tell her what she'd missed from two whole episodes. That girds your argument for padding. Clearly, he padded that show. Clearly.
Yeah.
And,
I think even now, some of my favorite shows that are on the air now are still very episodic by nature. I think Doctor Who is definitely one of my favorite shows. That's every episode, different alien planet, different tone. You can have a comedic episode followed by just straight up horror. And Star Trek, at its best, I always thought was great when it was episodic. There's a great episode of your show written by a Star Trek writer, David Gerrold.
David Gerrold, yeah.
Yeah. How was that episode? Because that's one that we really enjoy a lot.
How was it?
Yeah. How was the making of that episode, if you remember? Working with David Gerrold, because like he created the tribbles in Star Trek, which makes him a legend. So
no, I remember I told you that first comic convention I went to, in 1972 or something, and I was covering it, I think, for one of the local newspapers. So I was there for their costume event,
right, in
the evening, just covering it. I wasn't in a costume. And there was a woman standing in line in front of me who was not in a costume either. In fact, she wasn't wearing, nothing except ribbons. And you're thinking, the ribbons covered the part that that would be illegal? No. The ribbons didn't cover anything, but on the ribbon it said, "I am a gift for David Gerald." Because she loved because of the Tribbles episode.
Wow.
And then it was the early '70s, so I guess the Vice Squad wasn't so active then.
I wish that I'd actually given you some warning that Test of Time might come up, because we weren't planning to talk about Test of Time.
I didn't see it. Anyway, to continue. Yeah. So years later, when David Gerald was pitched to me as being a writer available to write one, we did the pitch meeting. Okay, David, you're going to write this, and standard pitch meeting, and he went off to write. And I said, by the way, there was this. I told him a thing about the girl, and he goes, "Oh yeah, he knew her." But we don't know what happened to her after that. He knew her from that era, but we didn't. I don't know what happened to her after that. I hope she's okay. You never know.
She certainly has confidence, so
And yes,
you've got to have a lot of confidence.
Quite uninhibited. Do you remember the name of the director of the Test of Time?
Not offhand, no. I can look it up.
Can you do it real quick?
Yeah, it won't take.
Because if it's the one I'm thinking of, I have a good story about him.
Let's see. David Grossman.
Are you sure David Grossman directed that?
According to IMDb, but IMDb is often wrong. I mean, you're not even listed as a producer on IMDb for the show, which is weird.
Well, David done a ton. He did a ton of Superboy episodes,
yes.
And was still working. Well. I mean, he was still directing TV just a couple of years ago. So a great career and a great guy, really pleasant to work with. I thought it was a different David, and I can't remember.
Nutter?
No, David Nutter again, fantastic career.
I don't remember the third David. I'm sure I'll be kicking myself later. it will come to me, as soon as we stop recording, probably. But all
right, so I've forgotten. I have forgotten. I'm sorry. So the answer is no. I don't have any stories about that particular episode.
That's fine.
It was one of the first ones we shot, and in general, watching the episodes you asked me to watch, that selection of them, I've begun to feel that we were finding our way in season 3, and by we I mean the writers, and in season 4 we had found our way.
They're the two best seasons of the show by far.
No question.
There are episodes that I love in those first 2 seasons, but overall, the Bureau stuff, hands down, is just, love it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty common opinion across the fandom of this show. I think most people agree. Seasons 3 and 4 were great, which is why it hurts so much to see it cancelled at the end of season 4, because it's like...
No, it wasn't cancelled. It wasn't cancelled. The only intention was
100 episodes, wasn't it? So it was syndication.
It was always the plan to do the 100 and then just stop, because it is expensive, and it was a gamble. And unfortunately, the gamble didn't pay off very well, because you did not see it in syndication. I would have thought that the thing could have gone on syndication for many years, but unfortunately it did not.
It's one of those things where it was aired a lot in the UK I believe it was on Sky One when I first saw it, but it was strange. Like, I saw the same episodes multiple times. It was like Bride of Bizarro Part 2 was always on for some reason, and Mindscape was always on. And so I saw those episodes like 3 or 4 times, but none of the rest of the show.
Really?
Yeah, it was very strangely.
That's why I have a little bit of a better experience with the show than you do, Tom, because I was watching it from day one.
Until I got my bootlegs, I hadn't seen 99% of the show. So it was,
My concern is the first impression I got from seeing happening like a couple of days ago. I watched that Neela episode again that I hadn't seen in 35 years. And the first thought was, this is just not for kids. And that's the problem.
It's a bit more of an adult episode for sure.
Yeah, but what adults can... Oh, Superboy, I'll watch that. I mean, just the name Superboy, which is why they didn't want the name mentioned in the show. They were trying to avoid that. as best. Viacom was trying to do that as best they could, and I don't think they really succeeded in doing that.
Would you talk a little bit about those episodes, Neela and the Beast? Because Neela and the Beast in particular is one that I really love, but just wondered what were your influences when creating that character?
You've got Superboy, so you naturally team him up with a female. But again, you're doing a kids show, and the undertone of Neela, it's not even an undertone, it's an overtone, is, hey, I want to mate with you to have super kids.
Yeah.
The other problem with Neela, the first thing as soon as I saw her is, oh my God, she looks like a drag queen.
The costume, it's not aged the best, has it?
A beautiful actress, very talented. She was in a series called Dream Street, which I don't know if anybody will ever get to see it again, but she was terrific in that. But she just looks like a contemporary version of a drag queen in the Neela costume.
I think we joked when we watched the episode, we did our own little fan commentary on it, and I believe I said that if you painted her face black and white, she would fit right in with the members of Kiss, because she looks like a hair metal rock star.
Yeah, and I don't know, more of a drag queen, and it was a first-time director who didn't direct again, and again, just not at all for children, except the special effects, maybe, people throwing shit around at each other.
Yeah.
I do think the second Neela episode is stronger than the first, but
yeah, I do too.
It's a really interesting story with, you have this character that looks like a monster, literally the Beast from the title, and to find out he's basically the good guy at the end, I don't know, even as watching it for the first time on bootleg, I appreciate
I wonder who we stole. I wonder who we stole that concept from. I mean, we kind of give it away in the title,
Yeah.
Yeah. But it works. It works.
I thought it did too. I did not have a good memory of that show, of that particular episode, and then I saw it a couple of days ago, and I thought, it does hold up.
That's why Chris and I love doing this show, because we're watching episodes that we haven't seen necessarily in years, and sometimes it reminds us of why we fell in love with the show. Even in season 1, when we've watched season 1 episodes, which is widely regarded as the weakest season of the show.
Yeah, they were finding
really great episodes.
They were finding their way with that one. And remember, in Orlando, there was only the smallest indigenous film community. And indigenous, I mean, I don't mean indigenous people. I mean, it didn't have much of a filmmaking community there. We were lucky in that the actors who lived in Orlando, who we needed, we had just enough. There were just enough there to satisfy what we needed. And there was no bench, though. In Hollywood, you have a dozen people coming in for one small part. There, it's like, we got to get this one guy, otherwise we're screwed.
Right.
There were a few guest actors that were in episodes that we noticed.
We did fly.
Back, 5 or 6 times you'd see the same actor pop up. I forget. There's I believe his name's Anthony something. I forget, but I always recognize him because there's a British sitcom that's hugely famous here, but not really anywhere else. Not really in America, rather, called Only Fools and Horses. And they did an episode, 2-part episode, where they went to Miami. And there are 2 actors from Superboy that pop up in that episode. So I was like, oh, they're clearly local Florida actors. So,
well, Orlando's a long way from Miami, a really long way. So they worked very hard to, the actors. If you're good, you'll be flown around, but it's just a long way to go. But they're willing to do it because they need the work.
Absolutely.
All you had was the Disney stuff, and then two shows at Universal. So you bounced around from one to the other if you were good.
Chris, do you want to ask the next question? Because I realize I've been hogging them a little bit.
Where are we on the list, Tom?
Just pick one at random. I'll tell you what, while you're choosing one, I'll just say we had Mark Edlitz on the show a few months back. So we were
great book.
Yeah, just a fantastic resource. But in one section when he's talking to you, you mentioned that you seriously doubted that anybody has the opening narration for Superboy memorized, whereas they would with George Reeves. Just
I did. I memorized that. I spewed it out to
we
Jack
have it memorized
Larson.
too.
When I met Jack Larson, I just, faster than speeding bullet, more powerful than locomotive. I did all that for Larson, and the deadpan look he gave me, it just like he'd heard it a million times. Everybody remembered that, and they always spewed it back at poor Jack.
Yeah. Well, today you're meeting two people that have your version memorized.
Well, it's not my version. I tried to write a version of it, and then somebody else rewrote it. I'm not sure who it was, but it was rewritten. So no memory of it.
All right. So Stan, Tom and I are, as you know from our conversation, big fans of Roads Not Taken. Okay. Mm-hmm. We have watched those 2 episodes somewhat ad nauseum.
Okay.
So in one of our many rewatches of those 2 episodes, in part 2, I kind of noticed a bit of environmental storytelling, so to speak. As you pan over the crowd at the start and looking at the resistance movement, there seems to be a lack of people of color. And given that the motif of this particular episode is heavily inspired by Nazi and fascist iconography, was this an intentional note in the script or something decided in this casting stage?
It was not intentional.
Okay.
You're talking about World 3, the Sovereign's World?
Yes.
Yeah. When he first arrives, there's that huge crowd of people on the street. Like, one of the kid tells him to like burn Lana with his heat vision. Like, there are no people of color in that, and we just wondered if that was intentional, because if it was, that really actually works for the episode. Like, on this earth, yeah, it was like a dark element that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I never thought of him as the Sovereign as being genocidal or racist for that matter. And if it looks like, no, it was not. It was completely unintentional.
Okay.
Our casting director, Mel Johnson, it was or is black.
Okay.
So certainly there was no prejudice. I shouldn't say certainly, but as best as I can tell, there would have been no prejudice from him. It's just, remember what I said before about the lack of a deep bench in Orlando?
Right.
That I think that held true even for extras.
Okay.
So we just used whoever we could as extras, and there was no. That's just, it's who showed up.
Well, it works for the episode. It sort of added an extra element that we didn't even think about the first time, but it was just on his most recent rewatch. Chris said, "I've just noticed this. I wonder if that was intentional."
No, I mean, you noticed it because now there is more emphasis on making even crowd scenes look like what the world is now. But back then, no one really thought about it. And to be honest, I'll say one nice thing about the Sovereign: he wasn't a racist. he thought he was better than everybody. So, all people were beneath him, not just
all of humanity.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, in seasons 3 and 4, you were obviously brought on as a producer.
Well, co-producer at first, but my job essentially was that of head writer.
Right. And you were working a lot with Julia Pistol, who also joined in season 3.
Right. She would have. Well, she worked on the show before in the earlier seasons.
I didn't realize she worked on the earlier seasons.
Really?
I think she was the Viacom rep, but you could look at the credits. I don't know if she's in it or not, but she was. If the credits say that, but she'd worked at the she'd worked on the show before.
I was literally just going to ask, like, how was that writer's room and just producer's room? Was it like a situation where you would get together and break stories?
No, she was almost never in there. She's not a writer. Remember what I said before about how usually the showrunner is a writer?
Right.
That wasn't the case here.
Okay.
So the writer's room is me and another guy. That's it.
Okay.
That was the whole writer's room. And it would just be the two of us talking about stuff.
Well, something was clearly working well in that season. The last question that I'll ask, because maybe we'll save some questions if we have you on again. Because
I'm happy to do this again, by the way.
Yeah, we've loved having you.
Just out of curiosity, will this air or be available to the public before March 13th?
Yes. It'll probably go up. It'll probably go up next weekend.
Well, can you mention that I'll be in the hometown of Siegel and Schuster on March 13th, 14th, and 15th, Cleveland, for their fan expo?
I tell you what, I'll just leave this in, and now they know.
I'll be at the Heroic Fine Art booth, along with Dan Reba, who is the artist who did the cover of the book that you showed a while ago. And also there's some
great illustrations in this book as well.
And also Dan was a director on Superman, Batman, Justice League, and Batman Beyond, an animation director. Yeah. And he'll be there.
So if you want to go and have a chat with Stan yourself, maybe ask some of the questions that we didn't have time to get to. You know where it is. So the last question I've purposely left to the end, because if we need to cut it, that's fine. This is the one that I wasn't sure if you would necessarily want to talk about, but there's one interview that I read with you on the internet, I think from 2012, like around then. And you referred to the season 2 producer, Mark Jones, as a pig of a man. Just wondered what happened. Like, why don't you like Mark Jones? Because
Mark just died. Mark just died.
Did he really? I didn't know that. He used to leave us YouTube comments a lot. I wondered why we hadn't heard from him for a while.
He just died, I think, at the very end of 2025.
Okay, maybe we.
So now you think, well, because he's dead, Stan's going to be nice. No, it's just the opposite. Now I can say anything I want because I don't have to be afraid of being sued by him.
Oh, so So
Mark,
it was just surprising.
You ask Mike. You know Mike Carlin, right?
Yes.
Yeah, ask him about Mark too. I mean, I was in contact with him after Mark died, and Mike was of the same mood that I am now, which is, nothing good. The problem was that Mark knew that you could make a lot of money writing, and I think that was his primary motivation. There's the West of Alpha Centauri. He's the one. Was he the one who's credited with that?
I don't know if he was. I can check.
Well, that's the one on the spaceship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mark, all right. Mark was friends with Ilya, and Ilya is who I almost never dealt with, but it comes through Julia. We have to hire Mark to do a script because Mark needs some money. All right. So Mark, we have to do a low budget bottle show. Okay. That means one set, right? So he gives me the outline, and there's 11 sets in it, 11 moves.
Wow.
Can't do it. It's not a bottle show. So I say, okay, Mark, I know you have to get the assignment. I have to give it to you. It's got to be a bottle show. When you do the script, it's got to put it in a bottle. It comes back, 11 sets. I think the numbers could be wrong a little bit. So I get it, and I just go, okay, thank you, Mark. I threw that on the desk of the staff writer, the poor unfortunate staff writer, and I said, it's got to be a bottle show. And what we got, I think, became West of Alpha Centauri.
Yeah,
which was a bottle show.
It up on IMDb, and he was listed as writer.
Yeah, well, at the end, I mean, we never went to arbitration on that show. Usually it's like somebody wrote a lot of it, two people wrote it, the Writers Guild is going to have to arbitrate. We never went to arbitrate. It was always just whoever the original writer was, they're going to get it. This is the one exception where I turned to Paul, the staff writer, and I said, Paul, you've done so much on this. Do you want me to ask for an arbitration so that you'll share credit with Mark? And he goes, no. I know Mark. I don't want to fuck with him. Just leave it the way it is. So here's Paul with that being dumped on him, literally at the same time that this poor 30-year-old guy got the worst news you could get from your doctor. As in, I got some really bad news for you, Paul. You're only 30, but you don't have that much longer to live. So he's got that weighing on him. And here's Mark Jones just going, oh, you know what? I'll just write whatever I want and they can rewrite it, because that's what we do. We rewrite stuff. That's our job. So I felt that his attitude was uncooperative.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can imagine why that would be frustrating, to say the least.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you ask the writer to do something, and I wasn't asking him to do anything that another writer wouldn't do. But it was just like, I'm sure he had that script laying around and just said, here, do it. Just do it. I'm not going to do any more. And I'm friends, he was a close friend of the exec of Elia Salkind. So what am I going to do, Just rewrite it. And never even commented about the rewriting. It was just, here, just give me the money. I'm fine. Goodbye.
Wow.
That's interesting that there was, that Paul was essentially rewriting that episode, because that is one of our favorite episodes from
scratch.
Season. Yeah.
From scratch.
That's
obviously
crazy.
He and I talked about it, and that idea of the captain of the ship not knowing where he was going. That was completely new. That was nothing that Mark thought of.
Wow.
That is one of our favorite episodes, and I always say that's one of my favorite episodes purely because I'm a Trekkie, and it feels like an episode that you could drop into a Star Trek show. Like maybe it's Worf instead of Superboy, like trapped in an alien prison, or Seven of Nine.
Very early on, Star Trek, like in the mid '80s when they rebooted it, they ran into a ship that was being run by these aliens who were very aggressive. And then it turned out that the aliens didn't know how to run their own ship.
Oh, the Packlets?
Yes, the Packlets. Yeah. And one of them was played by the guy who voiced Cobra Commander, Chris Latta.
Okay. So, yeah, that had that same feeling, I think, where you don't admit your own ignorance.
Yeah, that episode is... It
sounds
like it was kind of a miracle that it turned out as well as it did.
and Paul died when he was 35 years old. So that's why you don't see any more of his stuff.
That's a great shame.
We'd hired him in June, and around Labor Day around Thanksgiving, he got the bad diagnosis from the doctor. A very, very short career, and a great guy too. Wonderful to work with.
Very sad. Yeah. I did have another question, but I've completely forgotten what it was. So yeah.
I have to write everything down now.
Yeah, I've got a list of questions in a separate tab, but the question I had was not on that list. So.
All right. Well, we're in contact through email.
Yeah.
I'm around most of the time. It's just that today is or actually the next week is going to be kind of hectic because of work that has to be done on the house, and I don't like to do it.
Well, we appreciate you giving us as much time as you have. We have gone over an hour.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll certainly be in touch, because at some point we've got to talk about your shows that aren't Superboy that are in DC.
Do that too.
Your animated stuff is great too. It's just, we didn't get time.
And if you're in Cleveland next month, we'll meet in person. Okay.
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 I don't
Thank
know
you.
if Chris will be. I doubt I will, but yeah. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Bye.